Darkness kills, destroys the will. Find a spark, make hearts thrill. Hear the tales of time so grim. Shine a light, don't let it dim. Heather Brown downtown, bound. True crime story she's found. In the shadows, secret stay. Need a light that finds the way.
Welcome back to another exciting episode of Defeating the Darkness, True Crime Stories with Downtown Heather Brown. That's me. I'm your host. I'm a former homicide and sexual assault prosecutor here in Orange County. And today we have part 2 of one of the most exciting stories ever told. And we have Ryan Peters, who was the lead detective on this case that involves a marijuana dispensary owner and a roommate who were kidnapped out of their home in Newport Beach and taken in a vehicle, which we'll later find was a van, and driven out to the Mojave Desert, where Michael was tortured and tased and whipped and burned and beaten, and then had his penis cut off, and he was left in the desert for dead along with Mary. And Detective Peters on the last episode was telling us about how this gruesome case came to his desk and how he and about 30 other detectives from the Newport Beach Police Department worked relentlessly to try to figure out who committed these heinous crimes against Michael and Mary. And when we left off, if you haven't listened, stop the tape, go back and listen to the first episode so you can hear all the nitty-gritty about how Michael had I like to call her little nosy neighbor, like Mrs. Kravitz, and she was able to give detectives a key piece of evidence, which ended up being a lead in this case, which led them to a man by the name of Kyle Hanley. Detective Peters was just telling us on the last episode about how once they surveilled Kyle Hanley, they stopped him for a traffic code violation, and Detective Peters saw the blood drain from Kyle Hanley's face as he realized the gig was up and that the police were onto him and his involvement. And once he lawyered up, you then couldn't ask him any more questions, right? So what happened after this?
Yeah. So
welcome back.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. I just can't wait to hear the rest of the story. So tell us.
So we grab Kyle. And he's lawyered up and we have nothing. But we're going to search his car. We're going to search his house and his cell phone and bank records. You name it, we're going to search it inside and out. And
you got the warrants and you're ready
We got the warrants. We're ready to go. And so he obviously decides, I'm not going to say anything. So I go, okay, we take him. We keep him detained and we're going to go. We got CSI now. We got more detectives on his house, right? We're going to try to figure out what's in his house that can lead us to solving this crime. And the first thing that we want to do is get in that truck because now it's got that camper shell on it. It's the exact truck that was described as being in the back of the victim's house the day before. And so we want to find evidence in there. We want to find the victim's blood, the victim's hair, the victim's saliva, something that ties the victim to that car, right? And then keep in mind, though, when we found Michael, he was beat, tortured, tased, whipped, but also bleached, right? They poured bleach all over him. They stood on him, cut his penis off and did all that stuff. So they had to have cleaned up. They've had to have done something. So we go to the back of this truck and keep in mind at that point, I thought that was our truck. This is like where the crime took place. So we open it up, and as soon as we open it up, we just get this overwhelming smell, this huge stench of bleach. And I remember just getting so happy. Like, it smells disgusting and it's gross and it's overwhelming, but yes, either they used bleach to completely clean this crime scene and I'm still going to find evidence in it, right? It's this game that detectives and bad guys have, but I'm still going to find it, or this bleach is from when they poured it on him earlier and they had it in the back of this truck and they were lazy about it, right? So I'm going to find a ton of evidence. And we did, man. We started going through this thing and we found tape where they had put Panda paper in this truck. And so again, remember, they described the back of the vehicle as having Panda paper on the side, probably to cover up windows as they were traveling to dump them in the desert and beat them the entire time. And so they had this rubber Panda paper up, and there were remnants of duct tape and Panda paper in the back of this truck. And I'm thinking, we are gold. This is a great find. all the leads are leading us in the right direction. We're on the right path. And so going through it, we actually don't find, we find the stench of bleach. We find remnants of bleach, right? It breaks down into 2 different chemical compounds. We find the duct tape. We find remnants of pen to paper. And then we find 2 blue nitrile gloves in the cab of the truck, right? One's sitting out, one's underneath the seat. And nitrile gloves, for people that don't know, are just rubber gloves. They're latex gloves. They're just made of different material.
Are you thinking, okay, this is post OJ, like, oh dear God, not another glove?
Yeah. I mean, the glove is significant in this case, but at the same time, like, yeah, I mean, they used gloves, so okay, Kyle used gloves. What I wanted was the victim's DNA on that glove, right?
Yeah, 100%.
And I did not want Kyle's DNA on it because it's in his truck. Obviously it's his. Obviously his DNA is going to be on it, right? That's defendable. But like I wanted something else. I wanted more. So we collect the gloves, we take photographs, but what we're going to do is like we also button it back up and we take it back to the station because we want to do it in our warehouse, you know, more confined so we can get more detailed into it. So that gets towed back to our station. And then we proceed to search his entire house. And throughout the entire house, we found clothes with bleach stain, like bleach splatter on them, right? We found more zip ties that matched the zip ties that were found on the victim that were also found in the desert, right? We found zip ties matching all that. So we're getting excited. We go into the backyard and there's trash bags up against his house that we are pulling out towels that had bleach on them, right? Bleach stains on them. And then we test them for blood through our, CSI process. And they're coming out positive with blood. So now we know this towel had blood on it at some point. We're not going to get DNA from it, but it's telling us it was human blood. And then there's also bleach on these towels. And then we also find a cut used zip tie. So it's a zip tie that had been utilized, right? It's cinched down, but then it was cut where your wrist would be or something. So we found that as well. So we're collecting all this evidence. And this is at the point where I remember it's early morning hours now. And we're calling at the time, the lead DA was Matt Murphy. And so he's the one that signed off on all the warrants. So we call him and say, hey, Kyle Hanley lawyered up. He didn't say anything. We're not able to talk to him, but look at all this evidence. And we walk him through all the evidence. And then immediately with Matt, he goes, yeah, you have enough. And then from having enough, he's saying we had enough to charge him with the kidnapping and all the crimes that come with all
mayhem and torture and all those juicy crimes that we charged him with ultimately.
So we did, and I remember that morning. It's a win, right? We have all this stuff, but at the same time, we didn't have anything else. Like we had his cell phone. There are a few names in that cell phone. We didn't know who those names were at that point, but we had to start digging.
So you have at this point, you got the truck at the scene. You have his truck at the crime scene where these victims were kidnapped from, and then you have the panda paper, the remnants, and the bleach smell, the blood, and the zip ties that match.
Yeah.
And the fact he's associated with the marijuana marijuana business. But let's back up for a second. You had actually interviewed Michael about Kyle Hanley. Like, hey, do you know this guy?
Yeah. So that's actually was following that arrest.
Oh, it was after the arrest.
Yeah. I didn't want to give it up prior to Michael prior. Because what'll happen is from an investigative standpoint, if I talk to Michael about Kyle Hanley prior and Michael, and then we go start watching Kyle Hanley, and Michael just slips and tells somebody that shouldn't know that we're looking into Kyle Hanley, like it could get out. And so we keep that even from the victims. Like who we're looking into is kept very secret until the last moment. And so once we get Kyle Hanley and we get all the evidence, I start to decide what evidence do I want to send to the county for DNA processing, right? So the county will process, which we send the glove, the zip tie, the towels. We send it all off to county so that they can really get after it in regards to, will they find strands of hair? Will they find the victim's DNA? Will they find the second suspect's DNA? And then will that give us more leads, right? So it's not cold yet. We're good. We're still good, even though Kyle's not talking. But then it's like, okay, who's Kyle Hanley? And so look into him, where he goes to school. He went up in Fresno, lived way far away. He's got a brother. His brother's clean. His parents are clean. So we still don't know much about him. And then I remember taking his photo to Michael that afternoon. And now Michael's back now. He's out of the hospital. It's been a couple of days. He's back home living with his parents. He's got armed guards now. He's kind of, a little paranoid.
Oh, you think? Yeah, I would sleep with one eye open. I don't know that I'd ever sleep again, to be honest with you.
So he's got armed guards now, private security. And we go and we interview him and we tell him, hey, who's Kyle Hanley? And you should have seen his face. Like he's just kind of caught off guard, doesn't know how to respond. He goes, yeah, I know Kyle. And he goes, he was a friend of mine. And he calls him a friend. And then that's when we're like, all right, well, what kind of friend? How did you know him? And that's when he dives into the story of how he knows Kyle Hanley.
And how did he know Kyle Hanley?
So Kyle Hanley came in one time. So Kyle Hanley is in the marijuana business. Kyle Hanley he's a small-time guy. He grows weed at his house, and he takes it to these dispensaries, and he sells them weed. And so a dispensary will take the weed because they can't grow enough for their clients. So they'll take mom and pops bringing them in weed, and then they'll test them and find out, is it good? Do they want to sell it to their clients or not? And so that's what Kyle did. I remember the first time Kyle's the weed he got brought into him wasn't good enough, so he sent them away. And I remember it pissing, later finding out it upset them, right? So they brought different kind of weed in, and that sold. And so they started a partnership, basically, was what it was. And so they were selling Kyle's weed off the shelves, so it was going pretty good. And then so Michael, our victim, started befriending him. He was like, hey, it's one of I think it was Michael's birthday or one of his buddies' birthdays, but they decided to go to Vegas. They're going to go to Vegas, and they invite Kyle. And Kyle goes to Vegas with them. And on this trip, it's like no holds bar, everything goes. And it's a party for him and his boys. And they've got this big suite that was like $10,000 a night. They're gambling $5,000 a night in cash. They're getting massages. They're getting hookers. They're getting, you name it, they're getting it that weekend. And Kyle's along for the ride. And Kyle's this low end weed dealer that doesn't have any money. And he's getting seeing this lifestyle and immediately realizes all right, Michael's probably got a lot of money. And so keeps befriending him for a while. And then out of nowhere, per Michael at this point, Michael goes, yeah, after that Vegas trip, Kyle disappeared. He's like, I tried to buy more weed from him. He never answered his calls. He was ghosting him, never showed back up in any of his shops. And he just kind of went away. But in Michael's world, that's also normal because guys get arrested or they move. They're always,
could be in prison. You never know where he could be.
Could be in jail. Could be dead. Who knows? He's gone, right? So he kind of blows it off. All right, one less buyer that I got to buy from. So just kind of moves on. But little did we know, that's when the plan was hatched. As soon as Vegas happened and he realized Michael had all this money in cash and he was spending it pretty frivolously, all over the place, he's like, that's the target. So he became a target from that point on.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. No good deed goes unpunished, right? Yeah. Didn't, we never said this on any of the TV shows, but didn't Michael even pay for a hand job for Kyle Hanley?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry for my vulgar language. I hope your kids aren't listening to this podcast anyway, but what a dick.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
This guy buys you a hand job and, hosts your fun party in Vegas. And the way you repay him is you concoct a plan to rob him, torture him, tase him, burn him, whip him, and cut his dick off.
Yeah.
What an asshole.
Yeah.
Total asshole. These three guys are diabolical.
Yeah.
And we're going to get to who those other clowns are.
Yeah. So and then that's how it processes. That's how the next process is so all the evidence went off and we send it all away and we're waiting. Now this is in the prior episode, we talked about potentially things going cold. Well, this is kind of where I started to get nervous about it going cold because we were waiting for the labs to kick back the evidence that we sent off. And Kyle's interviews and his livelihood kind of ran into a dead end because we didn't know who any of Kyle's associates were. So we're just waiting. It's a waiting game at this point, which, you know, starts to get me nervous, right? I don't like waiting. I like constant movement, right? Anything in any object in movement will stay in movement, right? Like in motion, right? So like I need to be moving. I need to be in motion. I need to be progressing to the end at some point. And so finally the lab, I remember in December, this is December now. So October 12th to December, the lab comes back. They send me a letter. They say, yes, on the blue nitrile glove is the DNA connected to Hossein Nairi. And I'm like, who is Hossein Nairi? Like, I've never heard that name in my life. I have no idea. It's not connected to Kyle. It's not obviously connected to Kyle. So how is this connection? And remember that blue nitrile glove is found in Kyle Hanley's car 2 days after the crime. So we immediately jump on that. Okay, so who's Hossein Nairi? And then as soon as we start looking him in our own database, Hossein Nairi is coming back to living in Newport Beach, living with a woman named Courtney Shagirian, and was wanted by us in regards to a pursuit that took place 1 week prior to the kidnapping. And so this pursuit takes place where he's in the Tahoe that's registered to Courtney Shagirian. And one of our motor officers goes on this high-speed chase because he runs a red light. And they're chasing him all over Newport. High speeds, 100 miles an hour plus. And the pursuit ends near our harbor where he proceeds to exit and jump in the water and evade capture. And we ended up just towing the car. And so when we tow the car that night, we tow the car, take the car in our possession, with involving everything inside of it too, right? Anything in the car is ours now. And they go and they door knock Courtney Shagirian, say, hey, where's the person who's supposed to be driving this car? Like, who is it? And she goes, oh, it's my husband. Well, who's your husband? Hossein Nairi. And so they document that. They write that in the police report. Her husband is supposed to be driving the car, Hossein Nairi, and he's nowhere to be found. And they're like, well, where is he? And she immediately tells us to F off, slams the door, and then we go about, we keep the car. And at this point, it's just an evading case. Like it's a misdemeanor evading case at this point, where.
Okay, can I stop you for a second on that? We got to talk about this.
Okay.
Because I was fascinated by this fact. Okay, so the motor cop got busted from your agency for going over 100 miles an hour, right?
Yeah.
Like, how does a Tahoe? It's a Tahoe, right?
Yeah.
How does a Chevy Tahoe escape from a motor cop of Newport Beach? And then and I'm not, dissing on Newport Beach at all,
No,
but
yeah.
how does a Tahoe evade a motor cop?
The reckless driving was absolutely insane. Like the way he was driving, not only was he going 100 plus, but he's wrong side of the roads, going over islands, jumping over curbs. His driving on that night was just so reckless where, yes, our motor cop will have to go 100 miles an hour, but he's going 100 miles an hour on the correct side of the road.
Right. He's not jumping curbs on his motorcycle or anything.
So
okay.
He's gaining distance based on the way how reckless his driving is.
Got you.
Enough to where we're still in the area. We could still see him to a certain extent, but he gained enough distance on us to get out of the car and get in the water where we lost him.
Yeah. And so he jumps in the water and is gone.
Gone. Yeah.
That is so wild. That's like from a movie, right?
Yeah.
That whole little scene. I just can picture that, him in the water and he's gone.
Yeah.
So this guy's gone, flees the motor cop, and then unbeknownst to Newport Beach that this has any connection to this other caper, Newport Beach PD, right?
Yeah, no, we had it. So we had so this is a week prior to the crime. We impound the Chevy Tahoe. We keep it in our tow yard, and we, ask her, Courtney Shagirian, hey, where's your husband? She's like, I don't know. And so she blows it off. She actually comes in the next day and tries to report it as stolen. And at this point, keep in mind, the kidnapping hasn't taken place. Nothing's happened yet.
Right.
And so she says the car's stolen, and we say, no, you're lying now because we talked to you last night. So she then goes, okay, whatever, and leaves. And then leaves the car. She completely ignores it, doesn't come back, doesn't answer phone calls, and it's just an evading case. So we just keep the car. Then the kidnapping happens and everything unfolds from there. And so then when I'm looking up Hossein Nairi, I realize that Tahoe is still in our possession. So I'm like, okay, well, this Tahoe might give me a little more clues into who is Hossein Nairi and how he's tied to Courtney Shagirian other than she said they were married. And so I write a warrant for this Tahoe to find out more about Hossein Nairi. Write the warrant. I go to the car. Everything's still in it. It's a covered, tow yard's good. It's locked up. So we open the car. Everything's in it. And I start collecting it all. And I start realizing, I'm like, what are these little mini like Pelican cases with magnets on it? And I open it and I realize they're trackers.
GPS trackers.
They're GPS trackers to put on the bottom of cars. And then I open these little plastic cases with double-sided tape on it. Again, looks super suspicious. I open it up and I realize they're video cameras. They're little mini like video cameras. So I go, okay. So I take all that information back. I write warrants for that because now you have to write like a sub warrant for those. You write another warrant for those to getting access into that. And so as soon as we get the warrant signed off, I pop in the video camera, and the very first image of that is Michael's house. And I realize it's hours and hours and hours of video recording of Michael's house.
And there were hundreds of hours.
Hundreds of hours. I mean, 6 months worth. So 6 months worth of video surveillance on our victim's house in Hossein Nairi's car, linked to Courtney Shigerian. And his DNA is found in Kyle Hanley's car.
We call that a clue.
Yeah. So now we got to put it all together, right? Like who and when and how long have they been friends, and who's who in the zoo and who's calling the shots. And so we start immediately. So there's two things we want to do is link Kyle Hanley and Hossein Nairi, which was easy to do. They went to high school together. They're friends from Fresno. They went to the same school, grew up together. And then Courtney Shigerian as well. Like, who is she? So we put a team physically on her. We started following Hossein Nairi's phone, the phone listed for him. We started looking at all their phone records, which all of them had each other's name in their phones. Even Kyle Hanley's phone had Courtney Shigerian's number in it, had another unknown number that was eventually linked to Hossein Nairi. And so we're watching them because we want to find him. We want to arrest Hossein Nairi and then talk to Courtney at some point, right? That's the plan. And we're watching her for a few days and we don't see him. And so she lives in this high-rise apartment in Santa Ana, and she's going to and from the gym, to and from work. To and from school. She's in law school at this point. So she's going to and from law school. She's going to and from the gym, and that's it. Nobody sees him. He's not coming and going. So I'm thinking he's housed. He's just in the apartment because Kyle just got arrested. So he's not going to come out. He doesn't want to be arrested. He's probably worrying, is Kyle going to rat? Is he going to talk? Is he going to give him up? So I'm assuming he's just kind of been a recluse and kind of hiding out in the apartment. And we piece them together. So they're friends. They're good. All their phone numbers are matching. They're all on each other's phones. And we're also finding out that the phone he is using is showing up in that apartment. We're able to get a warrant in regards to like GPS track that phone and see where it's at that point. And it's showing in the apartment. And so we let that go for maybe 2 days. I don't recall how many days we sat on that, and he's not showing up. So we got to the point where like, we need to like go in. Like if he's not coming out, we need to go in. And so we get a warrant. The SWAT team is going to serve the warrant on the apartment. I want to get her out. I want to like eliminate her from that. So, excuse me. So in regards to that, we like, how can we get her out? Like, and I'm trying to figure out how we lure her out and lure her to the police department. We got a warrant for her as well, right? She's tied to this at some point. And we come up with the idea that like, hey, we're going to call her in and have her sign out all the stuff. We're going to give her the car. We're going to give her the car. We're going to give her all the material in the car, all the items, his shoes, there's sandals in there.
No, I thought she called you guys to say, can I get the car back?
No.
No?
Yeah, we called her and offered it to her.
Oh, and said, hey, do you want to get your car out of impound?
Yeah, I actually had I didn't do it because I didn't want that to spook her. So like I had the original investigator that did the evading case call her and say, hey, we're done looking into your evading. You can come get your car. And so when she showed up, I acted as if I was that guy. And so I had the SWAT team on standby.
So you went undercover as the property guy?
Yeah, I went undercover as the property detective. And so the SWAT team was going to serve the warrant when she came down. So when she showed up to our station to pick up the car and the evidence, they served that warrant. And then I had her walk down to the property room. It's all on camera. It's all on audio. And she walks down, and I have the tracking devices on the table. I have the video recordings on the table.
All the evidence of the crime.
All the evidence of the kidnapping crime.
Of the surveillance, or let's just say the groundwork that they did before the actual caper.
6 months of criminal evidence sitting right there. And I offer it to her. I was like, hey, you can sign for this property. You sign for the property waiver, and it's yours. And obviously, I'm not giving it to her, right?
Yeah, we call that a ruse.
Yeah.
Okay.
So she goes, great. And she's got no questions, like no hesitation. She signs.
Not like, what are all these surveillance or trackers or cameras? None of that.
None of that. I mean, you would know what's in your car, right? To a certain extent. Offer it to her. She signs for it and goes to take it. And I go, just kidding.
Not so fast.
Not so fast. Like, you're not going to take this evidence. And that's when I say, hey, we have a warrant for you. We have a warrant for your phone. We have a warrant for the car you drove down here. And we're serving a warrant on your apartment right now. And that's when she becomes very uncooperative and upset and pissed off, rightfully so. She starts talking about all her lawyer talk and who her dad was.
Those damn lawyers.
Yeah.
Don't you know who I am?
Yeah. So she's doing that. She's pulling that. And I'm like, that's great. And so she lawyers up, though. She doesn't want to talk. She goes, hey, I'm not talking to you. And I say, that's fine. So we get her DNA and we search her car, take her phone, keep all the evidence that we already had. And then she goes on and leaves. And then the sad part, though, the disappointing part was like the SWAT team serves this warrant on the house and he's not there. The phone's there, but he's not there. And so I remember just immediately kind of feeling defeated because I thought we were going to get our second suspect, right? We already got his DNA in Kyle's property or in the truck. And I thought that's at the time, the vehicle used in the crime. Like, I thought it was just this nice little package deal and he's not there. So now what? So sitting there, she's lawyered up. We've got this evidence. We know they're all tied to it. She's not talking. She's not cooperating. I immediately call my Homeland Security buddy and say, hey, I need you to figure out, did he leave? Did Hossein Nari leave? Because keep in mind, though, I did know at some point now, running Hossein Nari's history, his criminal history, we knew he was in the military. We knew he was AWOL at some point in the military, left. And we knew he left because he was getting in trouble for fighting in the military. And then we also knew that he had killed his best friend in a DUI, coke-induced, alcohol-induced crash where he killed his best friend and destroyed his leg in it. And during that, criminal proceedings, he fled the United States and then at some point sneaks back in and then pleads out and goes that whole route. So I already knew he's a flight risk. So I already knew from his prior history that man, where is this guy? And so I had my buddy do it and run it. And he goes, yeah, and he flew to Iran on a plane to Iran the day we arrested Kyle Hanley.
Wow. And for those listening, Iran is a non-extraditable country. They are not friendly with the Americans about getting suspects out of their country to bring them back here for justice.
No, if he fled to Mexico, great, right? Canada, great, not a problem. We'll go on a little vacation and go find him. Not a problem, right? That's an easy extraditable location. Iran, though,
not so much.
Not so much.
That's probably the worst place that
I still, to this day, and I think we've talked about it before, nobody has ever extradited or rused anybody out of Iran that we know of, right? Maybe the feds have at some point, but that's not normal.
That's unheard of.
Yeah.
That's really unheard of. So at this point, I think is when I actually came into the case.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I just remember being pulled in to brainstorm with you, but I think it was before we even possibly knew about Hossein, because the first time I was pulled into a meeting by Murphy to try to just kind of brainstorm about who we thought might be these players, because we knew there were 3 guys. We had Kyle. But we didn't know who the other players were. I think.
Yeah, no, you got pulled in because we had Kyle, but we were still on the robberies aspects of it. Like
Yeah.
we didn't have any of the DNA back or anything. And
Right.
you knew all the players in Orange County, all the like violent criminals at that point. So you got brought in to like just help brainstorm.
Yeah, and I think I was working on another robbery crew out of Newport. Do you remember this one where they were like, there was a poker game? It was a big thing because one detail we haven't told the listeners yet is that Billy Bannon was a big poker player, and he would host these poker games at his house where Michael was living and staying with Mary. And I remember there was this whole crew that used to come from LA and they would hit these poker games. I think we thought maybe the dealer was involved. Like he was kind of giving them the intel as to when there were these big things. Do you remember that big one on Newport Coast?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
like for the listener at that point, in regards to, I was also the SWAT commander at that time. Like, so we had a SWAT call out on that poker incident, that robbery incident, where we arrested one of the three because they pistol whipped, shot at, and then barricaded themselves in Newport Coast. And it was tied to Billy Bannon and his poker buddies. So like it was tied to that ring. But then also, like I would say a few months prior, I'm going to get the dates wrong, but a few months prior, we went and rescued another a kidnapped victim from a weed cell where they kidnapped this kid in Newport Coast, and we went and rescued him in Anaheim on a SWAT call out. They were like kidnapped him and like walking him around like a dog for 2 days, and we ended up in rescuing him as well. So like there was a ring of like weed and poker, games and like high dollar, like we're talking high dollar poker games, and they were getting robbed. So we thought maybe it's that aspect of it.
Yeah, I remember that when I was just walking through the hall one day and Murphy called me into that conference
Library,
room.
yeah.
Remember the library at
Yeah.
Central Court? And we
Yeah.
were all just chatting and talking, and you guys were giving me the scoop, and we were trying to figure out who might be involved. And then we met again. This is when it had kind of gone a little cold, right?
Yeah.
We had met again, and then I met with all of you, and they ultimately assigned the case to me because it was obviously they knew Michael was going to live.
Yeah.
It wasn't going to be Murphy's because he was, the big homicide DA. And I was the team leader on felony panel at the time. And so it was before it was post my sexual assault career or part of it. And then I was on felony panel for a little bit before I went to homicide. So they gave me this case to work on with you, and Murphy obviously was so invested and involved and had done so much work on it already at the beginning stages that we decided then and there we were going to make a way that we could try the case together. Yeah. And so you and I then started working, and my investigator, Paul Kelly, I got to give Paul Kelly a shout out because all that evidence you're talking about, Paul Kelly is obsessive. He was one of him and John Bierling, and I'm going to give Chris Peterson a shout out too, but they were some of the greatest investigators I had. But Paul Kelly had spreadsheets all up on the walls in his office of every single piece of evidence in this case. He took meticulous notes and kept such great track of all the evidence in this case. And there were so many pieces of evidence that were tested. And then once we got that hit on the glove and it was Hossein, then it was like kind of like a whole new direction that the case took. And so when you're now like realizing, holy shit, like Hossein's gone out of the country, what happens next? Like, how do you start?
So there's
working
two different directions we started going. So like the other piece of evidence that we had another hit from the zip tie, the cut zip tie that was found in the back of Kyle Hanley's house. So two different DNA. So you got Kyle Hanley, and then you've got the glove with Hossein Nayeri's DNA on it. And then you have a zip tie with another male DNA.
Unknown male
DNA on this third piece of evidence. And so that's your third guy, right? And we're like, oh, great. We've got these three guys. We've got their DNA all in the same location, all at Kyle's house, right? And so we have two directions. We can either continue to go after Courtney, or we can continue to figure out this third piece of DNA and how do we do that and what does that look like? So we did both of them at the exact same time. So Courtney obviously lawyers up pretty quick, and we quickly find out Courtney has got a very influential father, right? He's very wealthy, knows a lot of people, and we know that she's going to get the best lawyer, but we want to help. We want to be in the process of that, right? We want her on the witness bus, as you always put it. Like, there's only one seat on the witness bus. Is like, that's your saying, that's yours. And I love that. So you're like, okay, who's our best witness? And you're like, it's Courtney. Like, go after Courtney. Like, try to figure out how to talk to her. And you're going to come up with the idea of like, let's get her father involved. And so we call her father and convince.
Now, okay, on the father thing. So we were sitting there. I remember this. We were in the conference room and I asked you the specific question, where is this girl getting her money? Because remember, you were watching her and she was bringing him large sums of cash over to Iran and Dubai.
Yeah. So
right?
yeah, real quick. She flew out twice, Dubai and Turkey, to obviously meet him. And she's bringing him a ton of cash and meds and new clothes and everything. And she doesn't work.
And she's in law school. So I was like, where is she getting her money? And that's when you told me her father, right? Her father has money. And so I remember asking you, and correct me if I'm wrong, if this didn't go down this way, but I was like, well, have we called the girl's father? Like, get the girl's father involved.
No, you did, yeah.
But I remember you saying, I thought of that, but you were worried that it would screw up, like tip them off that we were really on to her and Hossein.
No. It's your idea. You're like, hey, we should do it. You should call the dad.
And then, but I don't think you guys called her right. And then I was like, call the girl's father, call right now. I remember yelling at you in the library.
Yeah.
But you did call but you did come up with that. I mean, you had already thought about doing that, but
there's a possibility. I just didn't want to step on, like, we're a team, right? We created this, like, our little power team, right? And we're just like, hey, we need to be on the same page with every step. So we're not screwing anything up.
Yeah. And I think like all of this, I just want the listeners to understand, like, we worked on this so much and so hard. There was so many things involved. So it was over years. This wasn't just 2-month thing. It was a long time coming before all this happened. So, okay. So you call the girl's father. Yeah.
So we decided to call and we sit down, and I remember sitting at the desk and I'm like, what am I going to say? Like, and I just realized, like, I was a dad. I'm a dad. I had a daughter at that time, a young daughter at that time. And I was just like, I got to be honest with him. Just, hey, from dad to dad. And that's literally what I said. I said, hey, from dad to dad, I would be involved with this process. I would be by my daughter's side, talking to her, giving her advice, giving her everything she needs, even if she's in the wrong, even though she's a suspect in this, which she was. You need to be with her. You need to convince her to be on our team and help us help her, like, figure this out, right? And so that's the conversation that I had. I remember calling, and I called and got his secretary, and she's like, hey, he's busy. I'm like, hey, no, this involves Courtney. I'm Detective Ryan Peters. He needs to call me now. And I remember he called from his, like, private jet en route somewhere, and we had that like. Honestly, it was another moment, right? There's like, this case is full of moments. I just remember it was a 4-minute conversation, but it was like a very genuine, heart to heart, dad to dad.
That was the moment.
You need to call your daughter. And keep in mind, like, I didn't know the relationship. Like, I didn't know how close they were or weren't. And it turns out they weren't close at all at that point. She had been lying to him the entire time about who she was living with and who she was dating, or they didn't even know she was married. And I didn't know any of that. Right.
And that was kind of my thought, just when we were talking about, like, where's she getting all this money to bring to him? Like, who's footing the bill for all this? Yeah. Like, follow the money. That's the key to a lot of things. Follow the money. So I was like, where's she getting the money? When you said it was the dad, I just knew, because, she's Armenian, right? I've said this before on the little TV shows, but I'm part Armenian too. And I just know the culture, and the families are very close knit. Armenian families are, a lot of families are too, right? It's not just solely Armenians, right? But I just remember in my family, we're very close, and I thought there is no way that this wealthy Armenian man knows or would be down with the fact his daughter is bringing his hard-earned money to some guy in Iran who chopped a guy's dick off. Yeah. Like, end of story. There's no way. I think those were my words to you. Like, there's no way this guy, if you call this dad, right, and get him on board, like, he's not going to be down with this, and he's going to get his daughter to sing like a bird. And so
100%. And that's what happened. I think within like an hour, you all had a call from Lou Rosenblum, like
her attorney
representing her, saying, when's the proffer?
Yeah.
Which is, you want to describe what a proffer is?
Yeah. So a proffer agreement is where the prosecutor agrees, we're not going to use anything you tell us in this particular interview against you. It doesn't mean we can't prosecute you with the evidence we already have, but the statement that you're giving us now is not going to be used. We cannot use it against you in a court of law. So she came in and with her attorney and gave a proffer agreement. And even then, like, none of us thought she was, I mean, I don't think any of us trusted her at that point.
No way.
And thought that she was going to, A, cooperate, B, cooperate to the extent that she did, or C, tell us like all the things that she told us in that interview. So
yeah. And I think at the end of the day, she told us what she knew.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree.
That's it. And did we get everything? No. Because she also didn't know everything.
Right.
So, but she gave us what she thought
what she had seen, what she had heard, and what she knew of.
Yeah.
And she obviously was not involved in committing this caper. She was not involved in, but she did assist Hossein in some areas of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she helped him. Like she told us in that proffer that she like helped him change out some batteries on some cameras and, overheard him talking. So he wasn't directly telling her what he was up to. He kind of gave his bullshit version to her of what he was up to.
Yeah.
Like, he gave her some bullshit story about how, Michael owed him money and they were going to try and get their money back from him. And so he was watching him to see where he hid his money. And she also told us that he was watching Michael's parents' house and his girlfriend's house and had those, tell the listeners about the geo fencing and.
So that's how we learned why they went out to the desert, that specific location. And it was from Courtney. So like she knew that at some point Hossein was obsessing over like tracking Michael, his family, and his girlfriend. Because they 100% thought, based on how much money, cash he was bringing in, he was burying it somewhere, or he was putting it somewhere. And they wanted to find that out. So they were tracking Michael's car, girlfriend's car, they were watching the parents, and they were trying to find where the money was going. So they would set up these so you put a tracker on a car, and then you go into the software and you put up like a radius of 2 miles, 10 miles, whatever it is, and it's called a geofence. So either you drive out of it or you drive in it, and it alerts you, so you can immediately look it up. So you'll get a text or a phone call or an email, and then you can like look into you pull up the software and it'll show you where the car's at. So they had geofences over like girlfriend's house and the parents' house and his house. So like they knew every time he left the home, and work, right? So they knew every time he left work or left home, and then they would track him. Well, that's what happened was at some point one like lonely day, Michael is getting like almost convinced to another like money laundering scheme, but like another scheme by like this Russian guy.
Like a Ponzi scheme.
It's like a Ponzi scheme, right? Mm-hmm. This local Russian guy that buys weed from Michael's shop was trying to sell him on the fact that they should buy this like abandoned gold mine because there's still gold in it. So during this conversation, Michael, for whatever reason, because Michael is a lovable teddy bear that freaking trusts everybody, which is extremely bizarre in his field of work, but he 100% is a likable, trustable guy that trusts everybody else.
He's such a nice guy.
And so he is listening to this like Russian guy about this gold mine and goes, yeah, I'll drive out and look at it with you. And sure enough, that's exactly where he does. He goes 2.5, 3 hours out to the desert, looks at this abandoned gold mine and realizes, oh, this is a Ponzi scheme or whatever. It's a fraud, and then drives back. Well, when he drives out there and drives back, that's when Nair's looking at it and going, oh, he's driving all over this abandoned gold mine. He must be hiding all his cash out there. And that's where he gets like fixated on. Now, again, idiot, right? Like it's public land at this point. It's like anybody can drive out there. There's no fences or anything. Like in whose right mind would they be putting cash out there where anybody can either buy it, dig it up, it can have a flood and wash it away. Like no one's going to put money out there.
Yeah,
And I just
most people don't bury money in the desert.
where they don't own.
Right? Yeah, like
they
not
don't-
on your land.
It's not on your land.
And he had enough money, he could go buy a piece of property
He could've.
somewhere and bury it there, right?
100% could have.
How about put it in a safe,
100% could have.
like a storage unit? Or, I mean, like there's 1,000 other places I'd put my money other than bury it in the desert.
This criminal, this Mr. Hossein Nairi, thought he was burying money out there. So that's how they ended up out there. They tracked him out there.
And didn't Courtney, I remember Courtney telling us that that he would watch a lot of those movies, like what's that one with Salma Hayek where, do you remember that one where she's like a drug lord and she works, they kidnap these two marijuana grow guys with Blake Lively. She's the girlfriend. They kidnap the girl.
Yeah. I do remember that.
Because they make like the purest bud and
Yeah, I do
everything.
remember that.
Remember that one?
Yeah, I do
It's actually a
remember
pretty
that.
good movie.
Yeah,
I
I
can't
do
remember the
remember
name of it, but it was good. But
But no, that's what he's into, right?
he's into like smoking weed and watching those movies.
Yeah.
And so Courtney, in the midst of that proffer, ends up, do you remember this? She told us that he named everybody during the caper, like from Reservoir Dogs,
Yep.
like, you're Mr. Brown and Mr. So the third guy that we didn't know who he was Mr. Brown.
Yeah, she describes him as Mr. Brown, and she also describes as like not knowing who that was.
Yeah. She didn't know who Mr. Brown was, but she knew who Mr. Pink was, and that was Kyle Hanley.
Yeah.
Right? Because
Yeah.
he's like
He was the weak one. He
He's
was the one they always thought would either rat or fold or not go along with it. Or,
He's the
well, that's why they brought in Mr. Brown. Actually, at the end of the day, it was just going to be Hossein and Kyle. And then Hossein, when it got closer and closer, Hossein's like, there's no way Kyle's going to do this. Like, he can't do it.
yeah, the driver who doesn't fill up the van.
Yeah, the guy that doesn't fill up the gas, exactly. Who like looks at me and loses all the blood in his face. Like he is super weak, and like that's what happened. So, they bring in this Mr. Brown, and now Courtney doesn't know who that is, but at the same time she gives us other people they hung out with, right? Because we're like, who else does he hang out with? And that's when she gives us Naomi Rodas, and she's like, oh, Naomi Rodas. And she gives us this whole backstory, right? Because when we're talking to Courtney, not only are we trying to get details of the crime, but we're trying to get who Hossein is and who his friends are and what his history is like. And that's when she tells us about the domestic violence, right, between Hossein and Courtney. And that's when she tells us the violence between Hossein and his once best friend, Ryan Kevorkian, and how they were all friends. And then Ryan Kevorkian ended up marrying Naomi Rodas and having kids. And then this whole story that Ryan Kevorkian cheated on Naomi. So Hossein beat him up with a bat, right? Like she told us all this story. So we're building this whole profile on Hossein throughout this proffer as well. And with that information, we still have that third DNA that's kind of just sitting out there. And so, of course, these are all names that we start looking into. And they're all up in Fresno. They're all back up north, still living out there. But they all went to high school together. Ryan Kevorkian and Hossein wrestled together. And Ryan's another big guy. But his DNA is not in the system. He actually was like he never had any felony convictions. At one point, he was a corrections officer even because his dad was a warden up in Fresno. And so he's relatively clean, He got fired at some point.
I'm only laughing because he was a corrections officer and he got fired for impregnating one of the inmates, I think. And
yeah, he ended up sleeping, impregnating, and getting fired and going and living with that inmate at some point. Yeah,
and, I think they're together now. I don't know if they're officially married, but he's with her or was with her back then when this case went on. But so not entirely clean.
Not entirely clean, but no record. DNA's not on file.
Yeah, and you know what? I actually think he was another victim of Hossein's as well.
So we find out. So what happens is we need to go invest into Naomi and Ryan Kevorkian as well, right? So we have Hossein that's in Iran, and then Courtney's now proffering, and then we need to find that third DNA. And so that's when we send a team up north, and I go to the Naomi Rodas side. We have another, like a narcotics team, go to the Ryan Kevorkian side. And the goal is to get his DNA, surreptitiously go and gather his DNA without him knowing, because we want to link his DNA to that unknown DNA on the zip tie that was found in Kyle's house. And so a phenomenal detective, Jeff Perkins, he's just a phenomenal detective. He goes up and figures out a way to like work his way into his gym routine. And during the gym routine, he ends up taking the towel that Ryan Kevorkian was using, which is not Ryan Kevorkian's property, it's the gym's property, and then gets permission to take it. And we take it and we test the sweat and the skin cells, everything else he wiped on that towel. We test that DNA with the other one, and it's an exact match. So now we know Ryan Kevorkian's DNA is on the zip tie found in the back of Kyle Henley's house, along with the DNA that's Hossein Nairi's that's found on the glove, also at Kyle Henley's house. And he was once married to Naomi Rodas. And Naomi Rodas had just bought guns recently, also a shotgun. And so all the pieces are starting to come into place. So we end up arresting Naomi and arresting Ryan and bringing them down to Orange County and trying them as well.
Wow. So now we've got Kyle, we've got Naomi, and we've got Ryan, but we don't have Hossein.
Yeah.
Well, we're out of time, so you're going to have to come back on the next episode and find out what happens, the end of the story. I'm so excited. I can't wait for the listeners to find out what happens. We're locking it down, though. We're locking it down. There's one remaining piece of the puzzle, and that's a big one. So you got to listen in and hear the next episode so you can find out how this case evolves and how we ultimately ended up capturing everyone who was involved and responsible for the horrible torture and tasing of Michael and the kidnapping of Mary as well. So we'll see you on the next episode of Defeating the Darkness. If you cannot find the light, you be the light, like Ryan Peters was in this case. Till next time, we'll see you again. So long.
Be the light, shine so bright.